All right, everybody, so on to our last lecture for the day. Now, at the bottom of page 24, what you should have noticed is that there was a character that was introduced, Sir Archibald, who was focused on survival. But whenever he got into heaven, he realized that, well, everybody's already survived, so this place, this heaven, has absolutely no use for him. You might have heard something similar like that whenever we looked at the Episcopalian theologian from a couple pages before, where he's talking about how, well, what is truth? It doesn't mean that truth is anything. Truth is what I believe and what I hold. Oh, now I have to go back to my theological circle where we're going to talk about reality and nature, right? That's kind of the same thing that Sir Archibald is doing. He's so focused on the survival technique that he's not at all caring about, well, you've already survived. This is the end that you were searching for. Yes, in the last lecture, I was talking about a means versus end and a distinction between those two things. St. Ignatius of Loyola would say that you should never treat a human being as a means to an end, but rather a proper end in and of her or himself. What does that mean? It means that you shouldn't use people. People shouldn't be a way to gain status or power or money in life, but rather a relationship with a person should be, well, just that, a relationship. And that the relationship itself should matter and not anything else that you might, quote unquote, get out of it. Another thought of how means versus ends work is that Bishop Barron talks about this idea of usefulness. And he says that he quotes Aristotle and he says, the best things in life are the most useless. And what does he say the best things are? Well, he says being with friends or going to a baseball game are the best things in life. But making money and getting a haircut aren't the best things in life. Indeed, those are means to an end. Making money provides for a haircut, provides for dates and times to spend with friends, and provides for tickets for the baseball game. And a haircut means that you get to look nice whenever you're hanging out with your friends. But those are means to the end. They're means to hanging out with your friends, means to getting to the baseball game, not the ends in and of itself. If you're focused on money as the end of your life, then you're not having it in its proper context. That money is simply a means to be in community with people. That a haircut is simply a means by which you can actually go out into public, which we can't do right now, but a means by which you can actually be sociable and not have your hair all over the place like Mr. de Villiers. This is the context that we're reading Lewis talking about means versus end. That's the context of whenever Bishop Barron is talking about this means-end distinction. Human beings shouldn't be considered useful for you. The Mass itself, the liturgy, you should never consider as something that's useful for you, because you shouldn't be trying to manipulate other people, especially God, to do something that it is that you want to be done. Rather, you should simply take those things as opportunities to develop greater in relationship with each respective party. Okay. Now let's look forward in the page and let's think about why in the world these spirits are leaving heaven. If you think about it, what is George saying? He's saying, I left closeness with God so that way I could be with you. Now, upon first investigation, we might be thinking, whoa, 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 you left being next to God? That's satanic, right? Because if the whole rest of the story is about turning your face away from God, then how in the world is George MacDonald not turning his face, and the other spirits that came back to save these souls, how are they not turning their faces away from God? This is how. Because the entire nature of heaven isn't about themselves. He says, every one of us lives only to journey further and further into the mountains, into God's love. But every one of us has interrupted that journey and retraced immeasurable distances to come down today on the mere chance of saving some ghosts. What is he saying? We have left the only thing that we have wanted to do forever and all of eternity so that we could bring other people into community with God. Now, later on, we'll understand why these same spirits can't go and descend into hell. That'll make more sense in a little bit. But it's important to understand that they're not turning their face from God. Rather, they're more fully encountering and bringing God to other people. They are engaging in an act of mercy. And as we talked about at the beginning of this semester, mercy is the action of showing God's face to another. They are showing God's face to other people, and they're being full images and likenesses of God in its perfect status, its perfect incarnation. They're showing that fullness to these ghosts that need it. They're engaging and bringing other people into community with God. That's the perfect act of mercy. It's the perfect act of heaven, is to go all the way back so that way they can bring people closer to God. And quite finally, one of my favorite quotes, and I think that I've quoted it to a couple classes throughout the year. There are only two kinds of people in the end, bottom of page 25. Those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says in the end, "Thy will be done." All that are in hell choose it. Without that self-choice, there could be no hell. And no soul that seriously and constantly desires joy will ever miss it. Again, this is that hope that we all have, that with the turning of our hearts towards God, we might be granted mercifully a share in his inheritance, and that eternal joy, that eternal banquet feast that we've always hoped for, that we've longed for, that peace that surpasses all understanding. At the bottom of the page, we're introduced to a new ghost. We'll reflect more on that encounter tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great day.